Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is the April 11th, 2014 meeting of the Finance and Audit Committee for the California High-Speed Rail Authority's Board of Directors. So we will start the meeting this morning with asking the Secretary to please call the roll. Here.
Director Camacho.
Here.
Vice Chair Miller.
Here.
Director Gometti.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we will start with if we have any, do we have anybody from the public who would like to address this committee? I see no one in the room. Is there anybody on the telephone? Thank you.
Yes, there is someone on the Zoom. I'll read the instructions first.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, we will now move to the Zoom participants. If you are joining the meeting via Zoom and wish to provide public comment, please use the raise your hand feature located at the bottom of your screen. Or if you are dialing in by phone, press the number 2. This will raise your hand and put you into our queue. Speakers will be called on in the order their hands are raised. Once you are in the queue and your name is called, please click the prompt on your screen to allow your microphone to be unmuted. If you are joining by phone, we will call on you with the last 4 digits of your phone number. At that point, you will hear a message that your phone is being unmuted. Each speaker will be given 2 minutes to speak. I will remind you when you have 15 seconds remaining. When it is your turn to speak, please slowly and clearly say your first and last name, and if applicable, state the organization you are representing. Mr. Chairman, our first speaker is Roland.
Good morning, Mr. LeBaum.
Good morning, Chair Richards, board member. I've got a very quick ask for you this morning. It's whether it would be possible to move the contingency drawdown curve from its current location, which is in the Central Valley report, to the CFO executive summary, probably close to the discussion on total project expenditure with forecast. Thank you.
Thank you, Roland. And Mr. Annis, I assume you will look into that. Thank you. All right, thank you. Then, ladies and gentlemen, that will conclude the public comment for today's meeting. We will move on to agenda item number 1, which is the approval of our January 18th minutes. Any changes, additions, deletions? We have a motion and a second by Directors Gometti on the motion and Director Camacho on the second. Please call the roll. Yes.
Director Camacho.
Yes.
Vice Chair Miller.
Yes.
Director Gometti. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Item number 2, CFO Annis, good morning. This, ladies and gentlemen, is our executive summary of the by the financial officer.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Chair and members. I'm going to present the financial reports executive summary. I wanted to start by updating the board on a couple recent milestones. In February, the California State Auditor completed their audit of our 21-22 fiscal year accounting records. And it was a what's called a clean audit, meaning no findings or misstatements in our year-end accounting statements. So I want to acknowledge Lisa Ortega, our accounting chief, and her staff for a good fiscal year close. In March, the authority received our first reimbursement from the federal government on our 2022 RAISE grant award that funds the configuration level design on the Merced extension. So we received about $10 million. And that's actually the first time since 2017 and the ARA grant that we received reimbursements from USDOT. So it's been about a 6-year gap in getting USDOT money flowing into our accounts here. So we're glad to see that restarted now. And of course, that's just the beginning with the many grant awards we received in 2023. Lastly,
Then will we expect in the future on that, Brian?
Sure. That particular grant was an award of $25 million for the Merced design up to that configuration level. I think the total cost is around 41 million-ish. So, and a lot of that's finishing this calendar year, so we should draw most of that $25 million federal award in by the end of the calendar year.
Thank you.
In April, April 4th, last week, the treasurer sold an additional 400 million in Prop 1A bond proceeds for the program. That's notable because the legislature, of course, in 2022 appropriated the last 4.2 billion of Prop 1A bonds. They made 2 billion of the 4.2 billion immediately available for bond sales. But for the final 2.2 billion, they required certain prerequisites before we could access those bond funds, including having the Inspector General review our 2023 project update report and issue a report on that. The Inspector General did that in January. We had some additional findings we had to make to the legislature. We did that. And again, that allowed us to participate in the spring bond sale on April 4th that included this 400 million, which portion of which is out of that $2.2 billion final amount of bond proceeds. So I want to thank the Inspector General's office for getting that report out in time for us to be able to participate in the spring bond sale.
Mr. Annis, with regards to that report from the Inspector General, would you please ensure that a copy of that goes to all of the board members?
Will do.
Thank you.
Couple other things as we get into the report. The board will notice in the detailed pages that we do incorporate some recent board actions in this F&A reporting. In January, the full board had approved the updated expenditure authorization that included the new federal grants from 2023. For example, that included the budget for the train set procurement that you're going to hear later today. So that full budget is now built into the financial records. And the second thing is we've included a mid-year budget forecast for this fiscal year that ends in June. And we usually do that about this time of year to give an update forecast of expenditures. For the first time, it's actually up instead of down. I'm going to delve into that a little more when we get to the right page of the summary, but just wanted to highlight that as sort of an interesting turn. Really, board asked us to be more focused on hitting the target on our budget forecast for expenditures to what actual expenditures came in at. So we did lower our budget forecast for spending this fiscal year, but at the same time, the project activity in the field has ramped up as well. So the expenditures, the activity on all the CPs has been a record year in terms of all the metrics of workers deployed, structures completed, utilities moved, et cetera. So expenditures have come up relative to prior years and our forecast came down. But again, let me get into specific numbers when I hit that page.
And Brian, let me just remove the request on the IG letter because as Brian Kelly just pointed out, reminded me that it is in the back of the 2024 business plan. So it is there. So you don't need to send it around.
All right, thank you. So I'll get to the PowerPoint slide that you see here as page 2 of the PowerPoint. Not much to report in terms of our accounts payable, aging and disputes. No late payments in the month of February, and the dispute level stayed about the same, about $98 million, and we continue to work through those. A cash management report at the bottom of the page. Our Prop 1A cash balance at the end of February was $168 million. Again, that would not include the $400 million bond sale from last week. Cap and trade ending cash balance was about $2.8 billion. That does not yet include the February auction, which we estimate is about $325 million for the authority. And lastly, this small fund, the Rail Property Management Fund, ends at about $12 million. So we have about $3 billion currently as of the end of February as a cash balance.
On that, Brian, can you just talk just a little bit about the dispute resolution so that I'm going to, obviously, if there's a dispute, then the clock's not running on payment at that point. But what sort of, what's the process on the dispute resolution in terms of time and that sort of thing?
Sure. Well, first, to be clear, we pay promptly any undisputed amounts in an invoice submittal. So there's no late payment in that case. Again, of what's appropriately documented and appropriate to pay. For those disputed items, it really depends on the contract and the issue. Most of these issues are most of these disputes in terms of dollar, I think it's 99% are related to the Dragados invoicing. And this is a longstanding issue where they will invoice issues that have change orders under negotiation. And so we're unable to pay them until those issues are resolved formally through a change order. But in some cases, they've performed some work, incurred some cost on the work pending the resolution of the change order. And so that's the vast majority of these disputes, is that single contract. There's a list, of course, in the detail on the specific contracts that are subject to disputes, and that's in the detail that's reported. In those cases, the contract manager will continue to work with the contractor if they choose to continue to advocate that it's an appropriate charge.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I think we can move to the next slide. Administration, budget and expenditures, not much changed here either. Year over year, of course, we're up in our expenditures because we've filled more vacant positions, but because we still have some vacancies, we're coming in under budget for the fiscal year. We do, budget at a level that assumes all of our positions are filled, but it's fairly typical to have some amount of savings in our administrative budget due to vacancies. And as we've said before, our vacancy rate of 16% is below the state average, which is about 20%. Next slide. So this is our capital outlay summary. For the month of February, capital expenditures were about $104 million, which is, so I look at this, about the same as January and about the same as last February, February 23. One thing to note here is the first bullet in the middle of the page. We say, we've finished about 2/3 of the year through February, and which is 66.7% of the fiscal year completed. We've spent 63.4% of our budget for the fiscal year. So that, that indicates we are coming fairly close to target here on our expenditures relative to our forecast. But as I mentioned we did, as we do mid-year, we do a mid-year forecast of expenditures, and working with the contract managers, they came in with a estimate that we would spend about $150 million above our current budget. So at this time, we're going to continue to monitor that. I think in a lot of line items will still come in under the budget for the individual contracts, but for some of the big construction or design build contracts, we do look to exceed what was in the line item budget for those. So we're going to continue to monitor it, report at the F&A meetings, but it may very well be that savings in some contracts will offset higher expenditures in other contracts. And again, it's largely a sign of good progress in the field. Drilling down a little bit by CP for the month of February, the construction or design build contracts specifically spent about $72 million. with CP1 at 20 million, CP23 at 38 million, and CP4 at 13 million. There's no questions. I believe we can move on to the next slide. Total project expenditures to date, about $12.4 billion, about 78% of that being construction. Looking to the bottom of the page here, we list all of our federal grants. About the fourth one down is the RAISE grant for the Merced extension. Again, a grant award of 25 million with the required state match of 16 million for a 41 million total. And as I mentioned, we did receive about $10 million in March in federal payment and have spent a match amount, excuse me, as well. So that's not here because this is only through February, but future report will start to show those federal dollars coming in. Excuse me. Next slide. Contract and expenditures report. Total number of contracts, total value of contracts, you'll note came down a little bit. We have 191 active contracts with the total value of $12.4 billion. The largest of the contracts that dropped off the list was the Caltrans contract related to their shifting of Highway 99 in Fresno. So that work, of course, was completed some time ago, but final closeout activities they did. It just now has dropped off the active contract list. Small business utilization on the bottom half of the page, cumulative overall total about 23.4%. And of course, we also report by category. The federal DBE category, disadvantaged business enterprise, about 10%, right at the federal target. DVBE, a disadvantaged business enterprise, about 3.9%, over the 3% target for that one. And then the cumulative California state micro business and small business coming in cumulatively overall about 9.5%.
Ryan, would you put a column back on there so that we can also take a look at what it was last year, year to date, and the previous month like we've had in the past?
Yeah, we do have that as the cumulative or the total at the top chart,
sorry.
bottom of
Yeah,
the top
okay.
chart.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so
Yeah, it's just up above now. That's fine.
yeah, so in month over month, it's up really
Yeah.
because of those, we pull
Yeah.
those expired contracts off
Yeah,
in
that's
the
good.
calculation. Next slide. Okay, so the contingency summary. At the top part of the top table here, we show all the contingency uses for, contingency for each of the construction packages. That includes the contingency for the design build contracts, but also for the other components of that work, including right-of-way, utilities, construction management contracts. So through the end of February, we have a balance of $1.03 billion in those CP specific contingencies. At the bottom half of that same table, we also list other contingencies, and we have a unallocated contingency of about $410 million that's also available to the broad program as needed. We'll mention, as was referenced in public comment, Daniel Horgan in his presentation and in that material, just give a few months look ahead. I will note, I think the construction folks probably have the best forecasting ability. They have a better view of what's coming. So I think those questions are probably best directed to Daniel. But we do certainly in the finance office look at that as well to see what's coming and monitor our cash. But as far as any specifics on that, I would refer that to the construction folks. There were no large change orders over 25 million in the month of February. We'll note for the board, there was not a board meeting in March. We still put out a monthly report in March and sent it to the board members. So that included January data. And so there was some detail on change orders as well for that January period. And that's in the report that we call the March report that went out. It's on our website as well. Those change orders, the larger of those was reported as well in the CO reports and to the full board in prior meetings as well. Next slide, please. This is our preliminary data on the month of March. Our total construction expenditures or capital expenditures were looking to be about $118 million. That's up a bit from January. These are, by the way, that we call these our late breaking information. So this isn't in the materials that's posted a week before the board meeting. We really put these together in the couple days before the board meeting to get the most recent information we can. Again, the DB expenditure specifically, in total about the same, about $68 million in DB expenditures in March, which is down a couple million from February. CP1 is up a bit. Oh, excuse me, CP1 in DB specifically is, I guess, about $1 million less. DB for 2.3 is up about $1 million, and CP4 is down about $3 million in expenditures. So that's about the same overall month over month. Not much to report on the bottom of the page. Vacancy rates stay about the same. And then for the federal grant summary, the federal government did complete all of their grant awards for the 2023 grant applications. And of course, we ended up with about 3.3 billion in across 4 different grant awards. But now we're looking ahead to new applications we're submitting in 2024. And the 16 million that shows up here in the bottom right table, that is a RAISE grant we submitted in February for the design, 100% design of the Merced station. And next week, we plan to submit a grant request for $60 million to a U.S. Department of Energy program for grid resilience, electrical grid resilience. It's sort of an unusual program to apply for, but because the project will have solar and battery storage that will offset some demand on the grid, we do think it's a very innovative program that we're coordinating with PG&E, and really PG&E supportive. They gave us a support letter because it does take pressure off their grid during high usage periods where high-speed rail might otherwise need to pull more of their power. So
Brian,
that concludes the report.
I didn't receive this. You usually send it out. I don't think Ernie got one either.
None of us
Sure.
are.
Yeah.
I have a few extra hard copies.
Yeah.
Let me, if I can give to the secretary to pass out. Let's see if I have one more. I'll give you these 3. So I will remember to, I usually email those out to you the night
Yeah,
before.
you do.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
Thank you.
I will get back on task. And that completes the report.
Well, anyway, listen, so the reason we're smiling up here is because I don't know that it's been announced, but I don't know that the public has noted, but our chief financial officer is going to hang up his boots at the end of June. So the CEO just suggested maybe we ought to fire you in advance.
I can book some vacation next month. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So enjoy your last meeting.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Horgan, welcome and good morning.
Good morning, Chair Richards and F&A committee members. This morning, I'm going to take you through the Central Valley Status Report for month ending February. Next slide, please. Okay, so in terms of contractors' expenditures, we had 71.5 million. This was made up of construction package 1, which was just over 20 million, construction package 2-3, which was 38 million, and construction package 4, which was 13 million. In the month of February, we executed a total of 21 change orders for a value of 38 million. The biggest of these change orders was for the Nebraska Avenue overbridge. We had to increase some spans in that bridge, and that would cost us approximately 11.5 million. Okay, in terms of risk contingency, as Brian said earlier, our risk contingency balance at the end of February was just over 1 billion. In terms of construction labor, again, a reasonably good month in February, slightly down on January, but it was 1,247 construction workers on site. Next slide, please. Okay, in terms of construction with the guideway and structures, we have 78 structures underway or in construction, 33 are underway, 45 completed. In terms of guideway, we got 91 miles of guideway in construction. So that's 35 miles underway and 56 miles completed. In terms of utility relocations, we hit a new milestone. We have now 70% of all utilities relocated. Another 15% are in the process of being relocated, and another 15% haven't started. We also
Daniel,
relocated 34 utilities in the
Daniel?
month of February.
Mr.
Can I-
Horgan, just a
Can
moment.
I
Yes.
stop you for a minute?
course.
Under construction progress, structures and guideways, do we have dates when all those are going to be completed?
Yeah, yes, we do.
Can you share them with us sometime?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
I can bring that. We've certainly got projections of the new structures that we're going to complete this year, and we've got projections of the structures we're going to start as well. So I can add those to the next meeting.
so has everything started on structures and guideways?
No, not everything. There's still some guideway that we haven't opened up, especially in the city of Fresno. And there's still 5 structures on CP1 that aren't in construction.
Are-
And they're
Will
also
they all
some-
be started this year in 24?
No, they
No.
won't all be started
No.
this year, but we will be advancing at least 5 new structures this year, and we should be opening another additional 5 miles of guideway.
Okay, yeah. I'd
Director
like-
Gilmedi.
Whether they're started or not, I'd like to see what your schedule tells us, when they will be started and when they will be completed.
Yes,
We can, as Daniel said, we can certainly bring to the committee in the future the start dates for each of them, but I just wanted to flag in the business plan on pages 20 through 23, there's a breakdown of structure by structure for each of the CPs and which element of those between right-of-way, utility, and construction status, where they are, green, yellow, red, and you can see it
Right.
in those pages in the business plan.
So, but that would be helpful if we would just include that in all of the future F&A meetings. Those schedules would be both valuable to us and to the public. Thank you.
we'll do that. Okay, so of the utilities that haven't started, as we know, a sequence of activities must be completed to begin utility relocation. These activities include environmental clearance, executed third-party agreements, design approval, construction work plans, pre-construction walkthroughs, acquisition of real property, and or land conveyance rights. Okay, in terms of real property, we delivered 1 more parcel to the design builders. So we have now delivered a total of 2,261 parcels to the design build contractors. Next slide, please. Okay, in terms of environmental clearance, the big headline here is Palmdale to Burbank. We are finalizing the EIR and EIS. We're just addressing the outstanding comments. And in the very near future, that will be coming to the board for approval. In terms of project development, which Christine Inouye is leading, we're advancing the design both on the Merced extension and the Bakersfield extension. So the 30% design is advancing, and following the board approval, we will be also issuing a notice to proceed to advance detailed design for both the Merced and Bakersfield extension. Next slide, please.
Is that just two?
Okay, this slide shows the histogram of contractors' expenditures. It's a combination of CP1 to CP4.
I know.
As you can see, February was 72 million, January was 42 million. So
Yeah.
reason for January being particularly low, there's several reasons, but it was quite a few holidays during January, and we had significant rail days and a couple of our big activities as well. We had a break in some of our big activities
No,
while we were moving equipment from one site to another.
and they're looking.
Next slide, please.
Okay, that is the project.
Okay, this slide shows the drawdown of contingency. We're projecting a contingency balance of 987 million by the end of May. Next slide, please. Okay, this slide shows the trend line of construction labor. A little bit down in February, but you will see in the flash report, it's picked up significantly in March. We anticipate that construction labor will maintain strong throughout the spring and into the summer. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide basically shows the structures and the guideway. The top solid blue line is the structures, 91 structures in construction or completed. That's guideway. And then the orange line is 78 structures either complete or underway. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the utility relocations. We set ourselves a target of relocating 1,395 utilities by year end. So far, we've made a good start. 18 utilities relocated in January and 34 in February. So now we have relocated a total of 1,284 utilities. We have another 274 utilities in the process of being relocated. Next slide, please. Okay, this slide is a very detailed breakdown of utilities by type, whether they're electric, gas, telecom, or wet, and by contract. So I just point to the CP4 column title CP4. As you can see, all electric utilities are relocated, all gas, all telecoms. The only utilities outstanding on CP4, and this is really just the tie-ins, are wet utilities. So this is to do with the irrigation districts. And we are working through those as we coordinate with the utility companies. Next slide, please. Okay, the slide shows the delivery of right-of-way. So only 26 parcels of right-of-way left for CP1 to 4. So we are nearing in on completion. And there was one parcel delivered in the month of February. Next slide, please. It's not, it's come up here. It hasn't come up on my screen. Okay, so let's see. Good job, I've got a hard copy. Okay, so this slide shows the delivery of railroad parcels. So we've delivered 153 railroad parcels to date, 23 outstanding. These are all on target to be delivered to ensure that we remain on schedule. So no delays here. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this is the CP1 earned value slide. So as you can see, the solid blue line is tracking well. It's significantly above the dotted yellow line. And as long as it stays above the dotted yellow line, it indicates we're tracking on target. The scheduled performance indicator here is 0.97. Next slide, please. Okay, this slide, and I apologize if FNA members didn't get this slide. I think I fell into the same trap as Brian Annis. But these are the preliminary figures for the month of March. So we'll have to book a holiday together.
Okay.
Okay, so in terms of construction was up significantly. We had 1,486 construction workers on site. which was a very strong figure. We delivered another parcel of land to design build contractors, and we executed 13 change orders as well. And we did relocate again 28 utilities in the month of March. So a pretty good March. Thank you. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Daniel, just a general question going forward. As we design these extensions to Merced and Bakersfield, will you assure me we're not going to do this as a design build?
Yes, they're going to be design bid build contracts, or maybe in one case, we might do a CMGC.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Daniel, those extensions, we are extending the existing contract, or are we gonna put those out to bid again?
No, they will be out to bid. They'll
They
be
go out
new
to bid.
contracts.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they could be entirely new contract.
Entirely new contracts, and
Okay.
we have an industry update on the 7th of May, where we'll be talking about all the contracts that are coming out in the next 2 or 3 years.
Any other questions for Mr. Horgan? Seeing none, thank you, Daniel, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
And ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the agendized items for the Finance and Audit Committee today. Please join us, if you will, at 9:30 for the board meeting. With that, the Finance and Audit Committee is adjourned.